Okay, so let's continue from the last session where we left. Okay, so we were talking about something called object store. Okay, an object store we use to persist, right? The state between persist the state between the calls. So what exactly this means is, okay, so in first call, let's say I read the database. So let's say I was having some 100 records over here. Okay, so till this point, 100 records. And in the second run, I got some few records here from 101 to 110. So now when I ran first time, these records from 1 to 100 were processed. Now this information was stored in that call. Okay, now I'm triggering next time. So this is my first call. This is my second call. So somebody has to process the data from the first call and pass it to the second call, and so on. Okay, so who can do that for me? So if I go with the object store, and if I go the option called persistent object store, and by default, the object store will be persistent. There's a second state, transient. Now, what is the difference between these two guys? Let's have a look at it. So when we are saying persistent, wherever you are deploying your code, okay, there you'll get object store. And when you are saying persistent, the object store will be created on your file store, on your hard drive. So even if you stop your flow and if you restart your flow, it will go ahead and read the file store. So your data will be intact in your object store or in your file store. If you are saying transient, it will be stored on your RAM here, running memory. Okay. If you restart your Mule applications, this RAM will be gone and your object store data will be lost. So by default, object store is persistent. That means your data will be stored in the file store of your system of your Mule runtime worker. Is that clear? Persistent, transient.
Yes.
Transient means temporary. In other words, we can say temporary. Just for that call. If I want to make this value available for other call also, I need to use persistent object store. Clear?
Yep.
Okay. Now, let me bring my use case which we were discussing. So this was the use case. I made little change over here. Okay. So if you remember, we retrieve the information from the object store. Let me run this in debug mode so that we'll get little information. Okay. So let it run. So we'll put the toggle. Oh no. This is the option available in our 7.14 row. Okay. So you can comment that processor. Comment out that processor. Okay. Comment and uncomment that processor directly from your UI. You don't need to go to the XML file and comment. Okay. So save everything. So you'll be reading data from here. So when you are coming first time, definitely your key value, right? Here, it will be 0. Am I right?
Yes.
Okay. Then we are asking our database, hey, can you give me all the records where product ID is greater than 0? And how are you passing this product ID? If you look at clear carefully, from here, I'm storing this value in my variable. Which variable? Process variable in the advanced. So I have created a target variable called process ID, and that variable I'm using it here to pass that information to my input parameter. This is called input parameter for my query. And this query, we call it parameterized query. When this query right now fetching all the records where this condition is true, product ID is greater than 0. All the records I'll get. Okay. So now we are getting value from the variable, and this query will return me a data. Now that data, anyway, I'm just reorganizing it. Okay, all the records. And then choice router, I'm checking, okay, whether I'm getting records from the query or not. The size of payload, okay, is greater than 0 or not. Or you can go ahead and optimize is empty. We can go ahead and do that also. Is empty option is also there. Okay. So generally better option is empty, because size of payload, if your query returns the huge data, it will create a problem. It will go ahead and generally try to fetch all the records and then find out the size. Okay. So right now we have few records. So I'm going with the size of. But instead of size of, there is a better function. Okay. What is that better function? Let me, is empty function is there. Okay. You can go ahead and this will give better option. So is empty. If it is true, okay. And here I'll say, go ahead and check for payload. Okay. So is empty. If it is true, that means you don't have any payload. So we'll go ahead and make it not of this guy, right? So if your payload is not empty, go ahead and do that. Clear? Go ahead and then execute for each. If you have some payload, then only you can go ahead and trigger the for each. Okay. Otherwise, don't do anything. What you can say, hey, no new records. Clear?
Okay.
If I got the records, I'll go and say, hey, from this set, go ahead and get first 200, insert it. Okay. Do that. And what I have done here, if you carefully look at it, I said, go ahead and calculate the maximum, okay, from the payload product ID. The way we're getting payload, if you see, this is the product ID. Okay. All the product ID be here. I'm getting maximum product ID from there. And what I'm doing is I'm publishing or storing in this key. This is the same key which we are retrying over here. So this is called manual watermarking. I am keeping track of my last process ID. I need to do that. And previous session, what, if you remember previous session, it was done automatically. And that guy also behind the scene uses object store only. You won't be able to see, but it also uses the object store only. Clear?
Okay.
So manually, I am keeping track of my last process ID. And from the table, we mentioned, right? We mentioned that for my watermarking, I need the column which is unique, which is in increasing order. Otherwise, this match won't work, right? If it is not in increasing order, if it is coming randomly, right? I cannot say the last maximum product ID is the last record. I can't say that, right? If it's coming random. So it has to come in increasing order. You need to pick that column, okay? Because that will tell you if the maximum values, that is the last record you process, correct?
Okay. So retrieve's main function is for watermarking, right? Or
Which one? Which one? Come again.
retrieve.
Retrieve is the operation on object store. Let me show you that. So we have retrieve option. So you need to pass the key here. For the given key, it will give you the value. Store.
Okay.
For store, okay. I don't need this. Store is nothing but it will store your value for a given. Store the value, get the value. That is what we are doing.
Okay.
Okay.
And what you have that in retrieve advanced, it is, yep, retrieve advanced option.
Okay. So retrieve will retrieve value, right? I have to store somewhere, right? In some
Yep.
variable.
Yep.
So I'll go to advanced and I'll go it in variable. Otherwise, it will get stored in payload.
Okay. And you said that target value is payload.
Yeah. So from where? So once I retrieve the value from the object store, that will get stored in the payload. That will become as a payload. And that payload value I'm storing in the variable. Otherwise, what will happen in this query? If I want to use this value later, right? It will be lost. Because after this processor, the payload will change, right? So I'll be lost this value. So I need to store somewhere that value. So I have used this option, advanced. In the advanced, I said, hey, go ahead and keep that value in this variable. So now
Okay.
this variable will be available for me in entire flow. Otherwise, if I don't keep like this, The value will come, 0 will come in the payload. Now that 0 will pass. Okay, let me quickly explain this in another way. Okay, so let me take my better tool, which is my snipping tool. Snipping tool. Come on, I'll take this. Okay. So now if you look at here, now I have object store here. Okay. Initially nothing will be there. First time, let's talk about the first iteration when we are triggering it. This is my database. Let's say this is DB1. Now I want to store this data into DB2 here. I want to sync these two databases. Now this is my object store, okay? And this is persistent object store. Now first time I'm triggering from here, I reach this guy. I went to object store and say, hey, can you give me last process ID? This guy is empty, completely empty. He said, I don't have anything. So in that case, this last process ID, last PID will be assigned as 0. And this PID is equal to 0 will be stored in the payload. Okay. And this payload will be passed on to this activity. In this activity, what we have select query. Select star from table name and then where product ID, right, is greater than colon some placeholder PID. Remember? And this PID is coming from this payload. So I can simply say payload, simply say here payload directly. Okay. Now, if this key I need to use at this location, let's say somewhere here. Then what happens? Now the payload is having this PID is equal to 0. Now, once this query returns the data, after this activity, whatever output is coming from this query, that becomes a payload. So let's say first 100 records. Those 100 records will be now payload. Now that means PID is equal to 0 is gone. I lost that. So instead of doing this, what I have done, I went to the advanced tab and I said, hey, can you store this value in some variable? So now this is stored in var.variable. Now this var will be available for entire of my life. So whatever is in payload now, this is also available. And since that I have stored this value in variable, target variable, that is also available at this moment, at this activity. Now I'm playing with this payload. I have just converted into little bit. I reorder it properly, and then that set I pass it to the choice router. And inside the choice router, I'm checking, hey, is this select query really returning a data or empty? If it is empty, then don't go, don't process anything, don't do for each, don't insert, don't update this object store. Because if this select query is returning, that means the greater than property is false. That means greater than this PID, there are no records in the table, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you will get a message, no new record. Clear?
Okay, and PID should be unique, right? Like,
Sorry, come again?
whatever. A PID, the process ID should be unique, right?
Yeah, process ID will be, this process ID will be the last process ID in the last run, whatever ID was there. So if you are with the first run, right, it will be 0.
It should be unique, right? Or not?
It should be unique.
Okay. Yeah. Got it. Yeah.
Now let's have a look at it. Let's run this and see. So I have my database, MySQL database. We have clearly seen the last session. So this is the product table from DB1. This is the product table from DB2. Nothing is there in the DB2 right now. There is a data in the product table of DB1. I have 3 records here. Clear? I have added a proper data now. Have a look at it. Now let's go ahead and try to trigger our process. Okay. So let's bring the postman. Now if you look at our flow, if I go here and listener, okay, DB1, right? Let's go ahead. Postman. I'll say HTTP. DB1. Okay, have a look at it carefully. If I say send, it will go and it will stop here. Now let's check what is I have in variable. So last process ID is 9 because in the last run, it is actually persisting that data. So I don't want to run right now. So let's if you go ahead and ask for this guy, it give you empty. Let's say next. So what is there in the payload? Nothing is there in the payload. This size 0. Because greater than 9, there are no records in my table right now. Okay. So this is empty. It will go to the choice router. When choice router will check, it will come over here because it's empty. And it will say no new records. Okay. Set payload. Fine. Now I have one setting over here. So when we are doing this, right, I can reset the persisted data. I can go here and I can say that go down here and I can say prompt. Whenever you're running, prompt me. Okay. So debug. It will prompt me, and whatever state was stored in the object store, right? That will reset. Do you want to clear the application data? You can also change this configuration in run dialog. Okay. Yes, I want to clean that data, whatever is stored in the object store right now. I want to clean it and I want to rerun the process fresh. So now object store will be cleaned. In object store, whatever was there is completely deleted. Let's clean the data now. And now this time we'll see all the records will come as part of the select query. Okay, let's have a look at it. Let's wait for the deployment. It's deployed now. If I go here, trigger my command, it will come here. And right now, let's have cross-check everything. What is there in the variable? The process ID is equal to 0. Because first time we are running, nothing will be there in the object store, right? So I got 0. Now select query, what I have written in the select query? Process ID greater than 0. Whatever records I have in this table, 1, 2, 3, all 3 records will come. Let's have a look at it. Next, Mule debugger. Next, now have a look at it. Payload is size equal to 3. If you want to really see, all 3 records are 0, 1, 2. All records are there. Next activity, it will go to the logger. It will log that. It will go to the choice router. If you look at the console, it's properly logged the data. See, product equal to 3 HP, all that blah blah blah. Everything is logged. Okay. Now choice router, when condition will be executed. Let's have a look at it. What when condition says? Yes, it's not empty. It will go inside. Now for each 200 records, it will try to bulk insert. Now let's have a look at it. It will go here and it's bulk insert. So all the 200 records are inserted in the product table of DB2. If I run it now, see all 3 records are inserted over here. Clear? Now, till now the object store is not updated. Now if I go ahead and update it, okay, the store is updated now. Let's go ahead and check now next run. If I run this time, it will go here and check the value of our process IDC 3. This time there are no records over there in the table, so it will say empty. Okay, empty, 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 no new record. You see the console, no new records, and there is a logger here, no new records. Okay. Now let's go ahead and add one record in the database in the product table of DB1. So I'll go ahead here and I'll say add record. So I'll say 4 and we'll say here Realme. Okay, description, phone, I'll say black box, 600, offer price, and actual price was 650. Is that okay? Apply, apply, finish. Now if I run my process, it should only process one record. Oh, let's go ahead and finish it first. Next. Okay, so let's have a look at it. Now this run, if I trigger, it should go ahead and trigger only process ID is 3 still. I say next now. Now if you look at the payload, there is the payload. See, one record is there. Next. Right now, we have not inserted anything inside the product table of DB2. That fourth record is not inserted, right?
Yep.
Now, once my process is done, right, if I say next, it will go inside, it will insert that, it will update my store now, and now set payload. And I got a proper output here, handle request successfully. If I go to my database, product table of DB2, and if I trigger this query, see the fourth record, Realme black box, is added successfully. And now if you look at the watermark value of my last process ID, is properly updated. See here, process ID is equal to 4. So manually we are handling it. And which scenario we are trying to showcase here is near real time. Okay, near real time. Same thing. Now, instead of having listener over here, I just for testing point of view added listener here. Instead of listener, what we should have here?
Scheduler.
Scheduler. Okay. So you can go ahead and easily add the scheduler. Now, this solution is perfect. No problem with this solution. But this is not reliable solution. Why? If something goes wrong here, right? In for each or after reading the record, I'll be losing data. Right? I'll be losing data. So what should I do? Once I read the data, if there is a way to publish it to some persistent storage, it will be good for me. Let's have a look at it, how we can do that. So I have done that via VMQs. Okay, same solution I have implemented via VMQ. I don't want to run that again. So I have retrieved the value from the object store, my watermark value. Then I went to the database, select from DB1. The same logic here, see, size of payload. Instead of that, I can use isEmpty function here for each. Now here, instead of writing to database, I'm simply publishing data to the VMQ. Now let me show you the VMQ. We don't need to configure anything over here. Okay. This VMQ, let me talk about little bit. Okay. Now, if you look at the scenario, what I'm doing now. So I'm playing a simple little, what I can say. I'm taking help of this mediator. Okay. So I read the data from the DB1. Okay. So let's say I got 1,000 records. What I'm doing is I'm making, batches of 200 records. I will be getting 5 batches. Now, if you look at this solution, the previous solution, this entire records are getting processed by single flow. Even if you're getting 1 million records here, right? Only one flow is processing that record. Okay. Now, so this solution, if I deployed on, let's say if I deploy on, so this Mule app, whatever I have here, right? So if I deploy into multiple workers, okay, and I have triggered that flow, the request will be executed on either of the one worker, right? So this load balancer will distribute that request, and that will come to one of the worker. Let's say we have deployed on cloud. Now what will happen? All these 5 batches will be processed by only one worker. So entire load is given to this same worker. Okay. Now let's say, what if this worker will publish the 5 batches to someone? So let's say something like a message broker. And what if both the workers process those records? So out of 5, some batches will be processed by these guys, some batches will be processed by these guys. That is called internal load balancing. One guy is publishing the data, 2 guys are processing the data. That is called internal load balancing. And this internal load balancing will do with the help of message brokers. Message brokers. We talked about object store to persist this state between the calls. Now we have message brokers to do the internal load balancing. The request, the load balancer, whatever we have LB here, this guy does the external load balancing. Incoming request, this guy will distribute to the worker. That is the job of load balancing. Now between these two workers, if I want to distribute the load, okay, then we have option called message broker. Okay, let me explain that. Okay, so message brokers also, queues also, we have 2 states: transient and we have persistent state. Okay, so transient means it will store in the worker memory only. Persistent means the worker file store. Now you'll be asking question, Ashish, how come these 2 guys will be sharing this? If this worker writes, if it is using the message broker, and if it writes on the same worker, how come this worker will be sharing this memory or able to access this? Now in Cloud Hub, there is the option called persistent VMQ checkbox. While deployment, you'll see that option. Now what it happens, the moment you select this checkbox, the moment you say VMQ persistent, this data won't get stored on your worker. It will get stored on something called DynamoDB. And this will get access via something called SQS REST API, SQS service. AWS provides the SQS service. Simple queuing service. And this data will be accessed from simple queuing service. If your data is getting stored outside of your worker, definitely that data will be available for this worker also and this worker also. Am I clear so far?
Yes.
Okay. So we have in-memory VMQ, which is application specific. Okay. We don't need any license for this guy, but it has limitation. Okay. It has limitations. Okay. What are limitations? You cannot scale this because it will be poor application. We cannot give the guarantee of ordering the process data, right? We cannot secure the data. I mean, definitely it's within the worker, so no problem of security, but this is limited to the Mule applications only.
So in transit, it is encrypted, right?
Yes, in transit within the worker, right? These all workers are my Mule worker only machine, right?
Yep.
So those are getting written over here only. And if I'm using SQL service, that is also HTTPS enabled.
Okay.
Okay. So even if it is going outside, but when it is going outside, we need to consider latency also, because if you are storing on your worker, the latency will be negligible. If you are
Yep.
storing outside, that means you need to do network call. for publishing also, do network call for receiving the data also,
Fetching, yeah.
right?
Mhm.
So
Yes.
when in case of on premises, this is the best solution we have. On premises, this solution is best. When you go to the cloud hub, right? Then in that case, instead of using this service, maybe you can consider third-party broker, something like ActiveMQ, Anypoint MQ, Amazon MQ, Reddish. These guys will give better scalability, better reliability, right? If you look at this scenario, okay. So, for example, my VM is transient. Okay, so my VM is transient. So on this worker, it will store the data. The moment I redeploy the applications, my data is gone. If this worker is deleted, my data is gone. Okay, if this checkbox is not checked, right, that means either I'm storing data in the memory or I'm storing data in the file store of that worker. Because this VM is for application, it will be creating copy over here only. So if my worker is gone, my data is gone. Now let's look at the solution for this. Okay, so we have something called external third-party brokers. Like we have something called Apache ActiveMQ. We have Anypoint MQ. All these are licensed product. Okay, Anypoint MQ is MuleSoft. You can go ahead and we have something called Reddish. We have something called SQS, SNS. All these are queuing services. Okay, there are multiple. So for demo, I'll take this guy, ActiveMQ. All are similar. Okay.
SQS and SNS are like
AWS.
AWS services, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And we have REST APIs available for this. For this also, we have REST APIs. All these guys are getting access via REST APIs only. Okay.
Okay.
No specific connector for this. All REST APIs.
Okay.
So ActiveMQ means some third-party system where this storage will be there. And all security, scalability, reliability, ordering of your message, encryption on transit, encryption on rest, right? All this will be provided by all these expensive tools outside. If you're paying, all these options will get it. But with the VM, you won't get all these options. Clear? So let's look at our solution now. Hope you got the clarity. So now what happens? Instead of using for each and directly writing here itself and giving entire load to this same worker, what I have done, let's have a look at it. Now, if you look at my solution, very simple solution, same thing, okay? I have published it here, okay? And I went to this guy as a listener, VM listener, and this guy will be listening to this. And whenever I'm getting 200 records, I'll go to the batch, and here I'm inserting in the bulk. Okay, we have discussed batch job, how it works. It's more reliable. So first of all, first thing, if I go with this solution, okay, let me pick this solution. If I go with this solution, just a second, keep me, okay. Let me explain better way. If I go with this solution, what happens? So this is my app, right? Now, if I deploy this app on two workers, okay, and let's say this is my JMS MQ. So that means the data, the queue is created outside of your workers. Okay. Now,
Okay.
this app, same app is deployed over here. App one, app one. Here, so now first, this guy will be running and it will be running on primary node. So the scheduler always runs on primary node. One of the guy will be decided as primary node So let's say this guy is the primary, this guy is secondary. You don't have control on that, okay? Randomly one guy will be decided. So let's say scheduler is running on this guy only. Now this guy will process. First, it will check the object store. It will get the data. So let's say I got data 1000 records. Now for each, what he's doing, he's publishing those 200 records per at a time. So I'll be getting 5 batches over here. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Am I clear so far? 5 batches are created here.
Okay. We are posting in 200, right? Batch job
Yeah,
is
200 at a time, right? 1000
yeah,
records,
okay.
5 batches will be created. 5, not
Okay.
batches, messages.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you look at my flow, listener will be here also, L1 and L1 here also. Both our listeners are ready, right? Now, both worker, only this worker can publish the data, but both the worker can listen the data from here, right? The first message will be processed by this guy, second message will be processed by this guy randomly, third message will be processed by this guy, fourth message will be processed by this guy, fifth message will be processed by this guy. Now,
Yep.
from this queue, automatically your load is balanced. This is called internal load balancing. Clear so far? Is that clear?
The queue means this publish to
Yeah. So
yeah.
when my this flow is getting executed, right? It will
Mm-hmm.
load all these messages, 5 messages, because I have 1000 records, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, what we have configured here in the for each, hey, go ahead and get 200 record at a time. Okay, so from my 1000, 200, each time 200 record will be considered, and that guy will be
Execute.
considered as a message, and that guy
Mm-hmm.
will publish it to this queue. Let's say this queue, I'm calling it as employee queue. So first 200
And
records are
where
here.
is that queue? Where is that queue?
Okay, so I'll show you that queue. So just right now consider this queue is getting created outside of my worker. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So let's have a look at it. This queue where it is getting created. So as I mentioned, I'm taking example of Apache ActiveMQ. So go ahead
Mm-hmm.
and try to download. So I'll go ahead here and say Apache ActiveMQ download. Go ahead and download it. Okay. So you'll get latest version of ActiveMQ. Go ahead and download it from here. Okay. Once you download it, okay. So you'll get zip file and you unzip that file. So Apache ActiveMQ, somewhere he'll be here somewhere. You'll get a zip file. Okay. So you unzip it. So you'll get this. Unzip it. You'll get this folder. Go inside bin folder and start the command from here. So once you start the command line, you need to start the message broker. Okay, go ahead and start. Very simple. Okay, and this is not part of your AnyPoint Studio or it's not part of your any worker. So what command? If you go look at, there is a batch file here. We can say ActiveMQ and start. So it will start the message broker and it will give you a web UI also so that we can manage it. We can see how many queues are created, how many things are created. Okay, clear?
Yes.
Yeah. So let me show you that. Okay. So ActiveMQ tutorial. I'll just show you a few things from here and rest of the thing I'll close it. Close unrelated projects. If I'm running something here, stop everything. Go to ActiveMQ and run this in debug mode. So let it run. Okay. So let's go to our command line. And since I want to now host my queue somewhere, right? That's your question. Where is this queue? So it will get hosted on some server. and that server I'm creating on my local host only, my machine. So on this server, this queue will be created. Okay. And on this queue, the message will be published, and from this queue, message will be consumed. Let me show you that now. Okay. So
Okay.
let's go ahead and say ActiveMQ and just say start. So we are starting a server and our queue will get hosted on this server. Run this command, it will start. So from here, we need to note down few things. Okay. So we need to note down, see here, as I mentioned, it will give us the web console. So this is the URL for this web console. And it will tell us where is our broker address. So listening where? It's listening on TCP 616 port number, this one. Are you able to see TCP? This is the important.
Yes.
Okay.
61616.
Yeah, 61616 and this 8161. Here I'll find a web console. This is my broker URL where my queues are hosted. So this
Posted.
URL and this URL I need to get it. Okay. Now if I go ahead and say, I'll just go ahead and say localhost 8161, it will show us the web console, and from here you can manage ActiveMQ broker. So this is the web console you will be getting. Okay. Once the queue, it will ask for username and password. Okay. So try to give admin, that is the default username and password. Now here it will show you all the queues. Okay. So what I can do, I'll delete old ones. So delete it and delete it. Nothing is there right now. Okay. Directly you can go ahead and create it. But our Mule application, if the queues are not available here, automatically it creates that queue. Let me show you that. So this web console part is clear. It is running on 8161 always.
Okay.
Localhost 818. This is web console. From here, I'll manage my queues, topics, subscribers, and all that. Now let's go back and let's see whether our app is running. See the console. It's deployed successfully. Have a look at it. It's deployed. Okay. And let's go ahead and post the message. So basically, I'll go ahead to my console and I'll say publish something. Okay. So I'm trying to publish this content to my queue. And let me show you that queue. What very simple. So you'll add a JMS module over here. If you are not getting module in your anypoint platform, where to find that module? Go to Exchange and get it, right?
Yep.
Clear? Once you get it, add the publish operation here. So I'm sending some data and I'm saying that publish that message to your queue. Now what queue? I will look at it. So web console part was clear. Now let's configure our JMS queue connector. Okay. So I'm saying I want ActiveMQ here, not generic connection. I want ActiveMQ. And I'll add all these drivers. Okay. ActiveMQ client, ActiveMQ broker, ActiveMQ hard DB. I'm going to use only broker from here. So I'll go ahead download. So what is the username and password of my broker? Admin and admin.
Admin. Yeah.
Okay. That is the username and password. Where it is running 61616 and
616.
local. And protocol is TCP. That's it. These two things I need to configure: username, password, and broker URL. That's it. Nothing else. Test the connection. If it is running over here, it will be successful. So test connection is successful. So I'm ready to publish and consume the data from this broker. So let's go ahead and let's try to publish something in the. So right now, if you look at my queue, there is no queue here, nothing, right? Completely empty. So we'll get and fast say publish the data to my queue. So content has been published. And if you look at here, if I refresh it, see the employee queue got created. And who is creating it? If you look at carefully here, Mule flow, I am saying this is the connector configuration you use and destination is employee. If this employee queue is not available there, you create it. That is what happened just now. The employee queue was not there, it created it. destination type is queue. Okay, here there is other option called topic. Hope you are clear with queue and topic. Clear? Now, whatever payload is coming, that payload is getting published to my.
What does mean by topic?
Okay, I'll come to that point, but let's finish this queue first. We are able to see data here and see. We are able to see the message ID also from where it is coming, and this correlation ID is automatically propagated to my broker. Did I send this correlation ID? No. Automatically is coming over here. And what is the message? Just now we have published this message. See, this is the message coming from my postman. Clear?
Yeah.
Okay. Now let's talk about come to your point. So this part is clear. ActiveMQ. Come to this point. Okay. So there is an option. Your destination can be queue, and your destination can be topic. Now let's try to understand. Okay. So I'll be having queue. Okay. Now the moment I publish something over here, okay. So let's say message 1, message 2, message 3. This is my queue. Okay. Now when I decide destination type as a queue, now here there will be subscribers. These subscribers are listening to this queue. This queue. So in case of queue, what happens? Subscriber 1, subscriber 2. Only one of them. Only one of them. That means at most one. Only one of them will get this message. So if I'm talking about M1, this M1 will be consumed by either S1 or S2, not both. This is the property of queue. This is called queue. Okay. When this message is consumed by this guy will process it, and this guy will acknowledge my queue. Hey, I'm done with my processing. You can delete this message from here. This is called auto acknowledgement. Second option, the moment I consume the message, I can immediately, before processing, I can immediately send back the acknowledgement. That is called immediate acknowledgement. Auto acknowledgement means once your flow is executed successfully, acknowledgement will go back to the VM queue and this message will be deleted. Are we clear so far? Auto acknowledgement, immediate acknowledgement. Immediate means the moment you got the message, you will immediately say acknowledgement, hey, I have consumed the message. The queue will delete that message from the queue. Then third option is manual. You will decide when to send the acknowledgement. When to send the acknowledgement, you will decide. Is that clear? Any stage of your processing, you can acknowledge the queue saying that, hey, I'm done with message. You go ahead and delete it.
Okay.
Clear? Okay. In both scenario, in manual and auto acknowledge, there could be a scenario. Your auto acknowledgement after completing the flow successfully, then you'll acknowledge, right? Manual also somewhere you'll decide and then acknowledge. This and this timing, maybe it's too late for queue to decide whether to keep this message or delete this message. In that case, queue will re-deliver the message. So in that case, re-deliver the message. This could be a duplicate message. So think about this auto acknowledgement. Your message was successfully processed. While sending the acknowledgement, you took little time because of latency, network, some traffic, and blah blah blah. Queue didn't receive the acknowledgement. So queue will re-deliver the message to your flow. there'd be a redelivery policy. At least 3 times your